My name is Imaan, and I'm 20 years old. I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone else. It's the kind of place where life feels predictable, like everything is in its right place. For the longest time, I thought I had my life figured out. I had a nice routine, work, school, and time with family. Nothing too crazy ever happened here, and I was okay with that. Everything felt stable, controlled. But that sense of security shattered one rainy evening. It all started right after dinner. The rain was coming down hard outside, tapping against the windows as I sat on the couch with my phone in hand. I was scrolling through social media, the sound of the rain mixing with the hum of the TV in the background. I felt at ease, nothing out of the ordinary. Then my mum called me into her room. There was something about her voice, soft but strained, that made me put my phone down. "Imaan, come here for a minute," she said, her tone a little too quiet. I paused, sensing something was wrong, but I followed her to her room anyway. When I walked in, she was sitting on the edge of her bed, her hands nervously twisting a tissue. The moment I saw her like that, I knew something had changed. My mum is strong. She never shows weakness, especially not in front of me. I could tell whatever she had to say was going to be important, and probably not good. I sat down next to her, waiting for her to speak. She looked at me, her face pale, almost as if she hadn't slept in days. Then she took a deep breath, as if bracing herself for something. "I need to tell you something," she began, her voice shaking. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." I stared at her, unsure of what was coming. The room felt too quiet, like the air itself was holding its breath. "You know this house, right?" she said, her gaze dropping to the floor. "It's not really ours." I blinked, not understanding at first. What did she mean? This house had been ours for as long as I could remember. I grew up here. It was the place where I spent my childhood, where I celebrated birthdays, and where I came back to after school every day. The thought of it not being ours didn't make sense. It was home. "What do you mean it's not ours?" I asked, my voice coming out more forcefully than I intended. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't quite place. Fear, regret, maybe a little guilt. "We've been renting it from someone, but we still owe a lot of money. And it's not just the rent, it's the interest. I borrowed more than I should have, and now they're coming for it." I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in slowly. The walls of our home, the ones that had always seemed so solid and unshakable, suddenly felt fragile. I tried to process what she was saying. My mum had borrowed money. She owed people. But I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea. "Who are these people?" I asked, my voice a whisper now, like I was afraid of the answer. She hesitated before answering, her fingers clutching the tissue even harder. I don't know how to explain this to you, Imaan, but the people I borrowed from, they're not just regular lenders. They're dangerous, and they want more than just money. They want control. And now they're coming." My chest tightened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mom, the person who always took care of everything, the one who kept our lives together, was scared. I had never seen her this way, not once. And the way she spoke about these people, it wasn't just about a loan. There was something darker underneath it all, something that made my skin crawl. "Control? What do you mean by that?" I asked, feeling the room close in on me. But she didn't answer. Instead, she just shook her head. I could see she didn't want to say more, didn't want to drag me into whatever nightmare she was facing. But it was too late for that. I was already in it. We both were. I stood up, my heart racing, trying to make sense of everything. "What are we supposed to do? How do we fix this?" My mum's eyes were filled with regret as she looked at me. "I wish I knew, Imaan. I wish I could protect you from all of this. But the truth is, there's no easy way out. I turned toward the door, my mind spinning. What was I supposed to do now? I felt like my whole life had been a lie. This house, my home, wasn't even ours to begin with. And whoever these people were, they were coming for it, for us. And I had no idea how to stop them. The rain hadn't stopped, but it felt like the entire world had quieted down. After my conversation with Mom, I couldn't sit still. The walls of our house, once so comforting, now felt suffocating. I needed answers that I couldn't get from my Mom. She was too scared, too broken to explain everything. I couldn't shake the image of her sitting there, pale and fragile, like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. I paced around the house, trying to think. The more I thought, the more I realized how little I knew. I had no idea who these people were, why they had so much control, or how deep Mum's debt really went. But one thing was clear. Whatever was coming wasn't just about money. These people had something darker in mind, and I needed to figure out what it was before it was too late. I grabbed my jacket, still drenched from earlier, and headed out into the storm. The streets were empty, just the sound of the rain splattering against the pavement, the only sign of life. I walked aimlessly for a while, my thoughts racing. I couldn't go back home yet, not like this. I needed to clear my head, but more than that, I needed answers. As I walked, my mind drifted back to the few things my Mum had said. They want control. Those words kept echoing in my mind. Who were these people? What did they want from us? I thought about all the things my Mum had done for me. She had always been the one to hold everything together, making sure I had everything I needed without ever asking for anything in return. She never let me see her struggle, never let me know how hard it was for her to make ends meet. But now, here I was, facing something that could destroy everything we had built, without any warning, without any preparation. My thoughts were interrupted when I noticed someone standing by the corner of the street, partially hidden in the shadows of a tall building. I stopped, unsure whether to keep walking or to approach. Something about the figure didn't feel right. They were standing too still, their face hidden beneath the hood of a dark jacket. I felt a chill run down my spine. I wasn't usually scared, but tonight was different. I took a step back, deciding not to get involved, but then the figure moved. They stepped forward into the rain, their footsteps soft but deliberate. "Are you lost?" I asked instinctively. The figure didn't answer right away. Instead, they slowly raised their head, revealing a pair of dark eyes that seemed to gleam in the night. It was a man, maybe in his 30s, with sharp features and an unsettling calmness about him. He didn't look dangerous at first glance, but there was something about him that made me uneasy. "You're not lost, Imaan," he said, his voice low but clear. My breath caught in my throat. How did he know my name? I didn't recognize him, and I certainly didn't remember ever meeting him. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice trembling a little. The man took a step closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "I think you already know." He paused as if waiting for my response, but when I didn't answer, he continued, "Your mother owes us, and she's about to pay up. The question is, are you ready to help her?" I stepped back, heart pounding. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what he was talking about. Who was us? What kind of people were they? I don't understand," I stammered. The man gave me a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's simple, really. Your mother made a choice, Imaan. She borrowed more than she could handle. Now it's time for her to pay the price. But maybe, just maybe, you can make this easier for her. We're willing to make a deal." I was trying to process his words, but it was like they didn't make sense. Who were these people? Why were they involved in something so sinister? My head felt like it was spinning, and the rain was getting heavier, soaking my clothes and weighing me down. The man took a step back, seeming to sense my confusion. "Think about it, Imaan. We're offering you a way out, a way to save her, but you'll have to make a choice." I was frozen. There was no way I could trust him, not with the cold look in his eyes, not with the way he spoke. But there was also no way I could ignore the desperation in his words. What did he mean by a way out? What kind of deal was he talking about? "Leave me alone," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. The man didn't move. "You'll come to us when you're ready. We'll be waiting." Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving me standing there, heart racing, drenched in rain with 1,000 questions I didn't have answers to. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my mind reeling. Who were they? What did they want from me? My mum had warned me about these people, but now it felt like they were watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. I turned and headed home, but the world felt different now. The house I'd known for so long felt like a stranger's. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face what was coming, but I knew one thing for certain. Whatever it wasn't going to be easy to escape. The night felt heavier as I walked back home, my feet dragging through the wet streets. The rain had started to ease up, but the chill in the air lingered, creeping under my skin. I could barely focus on where I was going. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The man, his word, they echoed in my head, over and over. A way out! What did that even mean? And what kind of deal could he possibly be offering? I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just some random guy, but deep down I knew that wasn't true. There was something about him. His eyes, the way he spoke, like he already knew what I was going to say, like he had everything planned out. It wasn't just a coincidence that he knew my name. He knew things I didn't even understand yet. When I got home, the door creaked as I pushed it open, the familiar smell of old wood and cooking spices greeting me. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, her face as pale as ever. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes flicking nervously from the door to me, as if she was waiting for something. "Where did you go?" she asked, her voice quiet, almost too soft, as if she was afraid to speak too loudly. "I was just out for a walk," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me. She could see it in my eyes, the confusion, the fear. She didn't say anything for a long time. She just stared at me, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. I could see the lines on her face deepening, the weight of something heavy resting on her shoulders. The same weight I could feel pressing down on me. "Imaan," she finally spoke, her voice shaking just a little. "You have to be careful. There are things you don't understand, things you can't know right now." Her words made my chest tighten. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "What do you mean? Who are these people? What do they want from us?" She looked away, her eyes flickering to the window, as if she was searching for a way to avoid the question. "I didn't want you to get involved in this, Imaan. I never wanted you to know, but they're dangerous, and they're not going to stop until they get what they want." I felt a knot twist in my stomach. I could see the fear in her eyes, the same fear that had been in that man's eyes when he spoke to me. They were connected somehow, but how? "I need to know, Mom. What did you get us into? What did you do?" I asked, my voice rising, unable to keep the frustration and fear from spilling out. She flinched at my words, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the table. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I never thought it would go this far." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "I made a mistake, Imaan. I borrowed money I couldn't pay back." "From who?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "From people who don't care about the law," she replied. People who do whatever it takes to get what they want, and they'll hurt anyone who stands in their way. I felt my blood run cold. So they're going to hurt us? She nodded, her face pale and lined with worry. They won't stop until they have everything they're owed, and if you try to fight back, if you try to get in their way... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The fear in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. I stood there, frozen. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. My mother had gotten us tangled up with dangerous people, people who wouldn't hesitate to destroy everything just to get what they wanted. I can't just sit here and do nothing, I said, more to myself than to her. There has to be a way out of this. We can't just let them win. Mum's eyes softened, but there was no hope in them. It's not that simple, Imaan. There's no way out unless you're willing to make a deal with them. And I don't want you involved in that. I don't want you to become like them. I felt a wave of anger rise up inside me. I'm not going to let them hurt us, Mum. I'll do whatever it takes to get us out of this. She shook her head, her voice breaking as she spoke. Imaan, you don't understand. There are things about them, things you don't want to know. If you get involved, if you try to take this on yourself, you won't just be risking your life. You'll be risking everything. I stepped back, trying to process everything she was saying. Her warning felt like a punch to the gut. But even as she spoke, I knew I couldn't back down. Not now. You've already made the deal, haven't you? I said quietly, looking at her with a new understanding. She didn't answer, but the way she lowered her head told me everything I needed to know. My mom had made a deal with these people, a dangerous one, and now somehow I had to figure out how to get us out of it. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed to find out more, to learn everything I could about these people before it was too late. And if I had to play their game to do that, then so be it. The storm outside had passed, but the storm in my heart was just beginning. The next few days felt like a blur, my mind constantly racing with what I had learned. It was like trying to put together pieces of a puzzle where I didn't even know what the final picture looked like. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in on us. My mum's warning echoed in my mind. You don't understand. If you get involved, you'll risk everything. But how could I not get involved? How could I just sit back while these people, whoever they were, kept pulling the strings in our lives? I wasn't going to let them destroy everything I cared about. Not again. That night after dinner, I couldn't sleep. The house felt too quiet, too still. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind outside made me jump. It was like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to do something. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake my mum. The last thing she needed was more stress. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, the cold air hitting me as soon as I stepped outside. The streets were empty, the city's lights flickering in the distance. It felt like the world had gone to sleep, but I couldn't. Not when I was this close to uncovering the truth. I walked for what felt like hours, my feet taking me to places I didn't even recognize. The deeper I went, the more I realized how little I knew about this world my mum had dragged us into. The people who controlled everything from the shadows. The ones who seemed to know our every move. I had to find out who they were, no matter the cost. I eventually found myself in front of a run-down building, its windows cracked and covered with grime. I didn't know why I was there. Something about it felt familiar. The man I'd met a few nights ago, the one who knew my name, had said there was a way out. Was this the place? Was this where everything would change? I hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open. The air inside was thick with dust, the smell of old wood and something more sinister. My heart pounded in my chest as I stepped inside. There was no turning back now. The building was dark, but there was a faint light coming from the back. I followed it, each step echoing in the silence. When I reached the back room, I saw him. The man, the one who had spoken to me that night. He was sitting at a table, his back to me, as if he'd been waiting all along. "You came," he said, his voice low, almost like a whisper. I wasn't sure if it was a statement or a question, but it didn't matter. The fact that he knew I'd come told me more than anything. He knew I would. He'd been planning this from the start. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you want from me?" He turned around slowly, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. "I told you before, Imaan. I'm offering you a way out, a chance to make all of this go away." His words were calm, almost too calm. "But you have to trust me." I clenched my fists. "I don't trust you," I said, my voice thick with defiance. "I don't know what you're playing at, but I won't be your pawn." He smiled then, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was cold, calculated. "No one's asking you to be anyone's pawn. You'll be the one pulling the strings, Imaan. You just have to accept that you're already in the game." I took a step back, my mind racing. What did he mean by that? Was this some kind of trap? What strings was he talking about? He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. "You think you're still in control, that you can walk away from this? You're in deeper than you realize, Imaan. The people we're dealing with, they don't let go easily." My heart skipped a beat. "Who are they?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Who do I have to fight?" He stood up slowly, his gaze never leaving mine. "You'll know soon enough, but first you need to make a choice, or you can walk away, go home, forget all of this." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Or you can take the deal, work with us, and you'll have the power to take control of everything. The choice is yours." I stood there, frozen. The weight of his words hung in the air, suffocating me. What was the right choice? Could I trust him? Could I trust anyone in this world anymore? "I need time," I said, my voice shaking despite myself. I couldn't make a decision yet. I had to think. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just some random encounter. This was the beginning of something much bigger, and I had no idea what I was walking into. The man's smile grew. "Take all the time you need, Imaan, but remember, time is running out." And with that he turned and walked into the shadows, leaving me standing in the dark room, alone, unsure of what came next. The storm inside me was only getting worse, and I didn't know how much longer I could keep running from it. I couldn't stop thinking about what the man had said. The words echoed in my mind like a broken record. Time is running out. But what did that even mean, and why was he so sure that I had a choice? What was this game I was apparently a part of? The next day I tried to act normal. It was hard to focus, though. Every time I looked around, I felt like the walls were closing in on me. The same heavy feeling that had been weighing on me since I walked into that rundown building only grew stronger. I didn't talk to my mum about it. She had enough on her plate already. But I knew I couldn't keep this secret to myself forever. It felt like the more I kept it inside, the more I risked losing myself in the process. The man had promised a way out, but I wasn't sure I could trust him. And even if I could, I had no idea what the cost would be. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed. I checked it, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw the message. It was from an unknown number. "We know you've been talking to him. Don't think you can hide from us. We're always watching." I froze. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I felt a chill run through me. How did they know? Who were these people? I wanted to respond, but I didn't know what to say. It felt like every move I made was being tracked. No matter how hard I tried to escape it, I was already too deep in, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't let fear control me. I had to find answers. I grabbed my jacket and headed out once again. This time I wasn't going to wait. I needed to confront the man. I needed to know the truth. No more games. As I walked down the familiar streets, the quiet night seemed more oppressive than ever. The only sounds were my footsteps echoing against the pavement and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. I had no plan, no backup. It was just me and whatever was waiting for me at the end of this path. When I reached the building, I didn't hesitate. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was just as I had left it, but this time there was something different. The air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. The man was sitting at the same table, but this time there was no calm smile on his face. His expression was serious, almost urgent. "You came," he said quietly, almost as if he had been expecting me. "Why are they after me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't sure if I wanted the answer, but I needed it. I needed to know who these people were and why they were watching my every move. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "They know you're involved now. They always knew it would come to this." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "You're more important than you realize. They want control, and you're the key." My stomach twisted. I could feel the weight of his words, like they were sinking deep into my chest. "What do you mean, I'm the key? What do they want with me?" He stood up and walked toward me slowly, his footsteps deliberate. "You're not just a pawn, Imaan. You're a player in this game. The people watching you, they don't want to just control the outcome. They want you to join them. They believe you're the one who can make the difference." "Make the difference," I repeated, trying to wrap my head around what he was saying. "What are you talking about? What difference?" He looked at me, his eyes intense. "I'm not going to lie to you. It's dangerous. If you choose to fight them, you'll be risking everything. But if you join them, you'll have the power to control everything. It's up to you, Imaan. The choice is yours." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. My hands were shaking, but I clenched them into fists, trying to keep myself steady. I had never felt more torn in my life. Fight or join them. Both options seemed like they would destroy me in different ways. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. "What happens if I don't choose?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was softer, almost sad. "Then they'll make the choice for you." For the first time, I felt a cold, sinking dread. They were getting too close. No matter what I did, it felt like I couldn't escape. "I need time," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I can't make this decision yet." He nodded, but there was no comfort in his gaze. "Time is the one thing you don't have, Imaan." And with that, he turned away, leaving me standing in the middle of the room, frozen by the weight of the decision hanging over me. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't walk away from this. Not now. Not when everything I cared about was at stake. The game had already started.